Welcome back to the Azure Education Governance Series. My name is Eric DeBoard, and this is our final wrap-up video / summary of our entire governance series. I'm joined today by Amy Manley and David Ulloa, who are team members of mine and are also Azure TSPs. Okay, so in this summary, we just want to talk about quickly what this video covered, so you can use this as a place to come and get a reference for everything that happened in the video. So first thing is, what was this series all about? We talked about our education customers wanting guidance for cloud adoption. We hear it every day. And so this series is a result of us trying to help customers that are having these challenges and concerns around governance. We're going to give general guidance in this series and give you new ways to think about adoption. We also need to make sure that you realize that you have to adapt this guidance to your unique scenario. And so we don't want you to get paralyzed with decision making. We just want you to move quickly through making decisions in the series. So in video number 1 in the series, we talk about what the series is all about. We talk about governance. So what is Azure governance? You're also going to learn that in video number 1. Just a quick review here, though, is it's a number of different tools, processes, and capabilities that come together to help you understand costing, management, auditing, all the fun things that come into managing and understanding an environment. So we talk about that in video 1. This video series was built around an organization called Contoso Education. It's our fictitious company. We talked about throughout the video series about their goals and strategy. They wanted to improve student retention, graduate students more quickly, reduce costs, a number of things here. We talk about this strategy also in video number 1.
Yeah, Eric, and in video number 2, we covered Azure Monetary Commit. So when you create an Azure enrollment, you need to have a minimum dollar amount, and then you can use that to pay for services. Again, these are services deployed in an Azure subscription. Once the commitment is used, partner reseller will go ahead and send a bill for any what we call overage. Again, there's no negative to being an overage. You just pay as you go when you use up that commit. So definitely leverage video 2 to learn more about getting started with monetary commits.
Then in video 3, we went over the enterprise enrollment hierarchy. So this is a good guideline for when you sign your EA agreement and you have the enterprise portal open. So as you can see, departments are optional, but it's a good way to organize things as you start to grow your environment. And then you can create account owners that then can deploy subscriptions. And then within those subscriptions, you'll have your different resource groups.
And so we moved on from video 3 to video 4, where we actually did the demo of the enterprise portal. So if you want to see how this portal works, check out video number 4. We go through many of the menu systems and help you understand the different options that are available. In addition, we talked about the scheduling of an onboarding call. So this is a call you can set up with some Microsoft resources to sort of walk you through this whole process that we talk about with the enterprise portal. In addition, in video 4, we discussed the management portal. This is the portal that you use to actually deploy resources. So go to video number 4 if you want a quick demo of the Azure management portal. Finally, in video number 4, we talked about the enrollment hierarchy summary. So in video 3, we talked about it overall. In video 4, we applied it to our education customers. So we assigned specific roles across the enterprise enrollment itself. We assigned some department administrators and we assigned some account owners. So go check out video 4 to learn about building out the hierarchy and assigning different roles.
Eric, in video number 5, we went more in detail as to what is a subscription, which is where you actually deploy Azure resources like virtual machines, storage accounts. Again, this is considered a building and security boundary, and each subscription does have limits. So there are certain things to consider when you're deploying a lot of resources. So that URL there is very key to learn more about scale limits within a subscription. We also covered some subscription best practices. Again, things like keeping it simple, right? The fewer, the better. Always guidance around having test dev subscriptions and training subscriptions to get familiar with deploying resources, and then having separate subscriptions for production. So things that are typically deployed even in on-premises data centers. And then we also did in video number 5 a demo of an Azure subscription. We logged into the portal, went through the different blades of managing Azure subscriptions. So definitely refer to video number 5 to get more details on Azure subscriptions.
Video 6. So we covered all the tools you have at your disposal for understanding your Azure spend and alerting on it as well. So to keep those costs in mind, the pricing calculator will give you a heads up on what things can cost. You can also track costs within your EA portal itself. And then Azure Advisor and then Azure Billing and Cost Management can help you set alerting and see if you need to make any adjustments in your environment to save on cost.
And I'll just add one thing here, Amy, and that is that since we created video number 6, this new idea of Azure budgets came out. So Azure budgets let you do some more interesting things around budgeting. And so if you want to check that out, you can find some information on budgets.
And then there's video 7 where we covered roles and RBAC in Azure. Azure has over 42 built-in roles that you can start with. A lot are, account owner or VM contributor, but you can also create customized roles as well. And this gives you the fine-grained control to give the least amount of permissions needed for someone to perform their task within using resource groups with the role-based access control. So continuing on with that enrollment hierarchy, we created enterprise admins on the top, Amy and David. Yeah, I get to be an admin. And then Brian is head of the Department of Medical Research and Eric's part of Central IT. So they own that department. And then below them, the account owners. And then below them, they have the subscriptions or the people can deploy the resources that they need to.
Great. And so in this video, we sort of, Amy, summarized how Contoso applied some of our guidance around role-based access control to the whole hierarchy and all the way down to the subscriptions, right?
Right. Yeah, where research has their own subscriptions, their own controls, but in Central IT, you can still have production and test dev.
Okay, in video 8, we talked about naming conventions and tagging standards, and these are important for a number of reasons. You want to have consistent naming conventions just to make it easier to locate your resources because you can search for them based on name. You can also indicate the role of the resource in a solution with a naming convention. Most organizations have been using naming conventions for years on premises. Just take that, why it's important on premises, into Azure, and you get some of the same benefits. But even more because of the way you can search and find things. In addition to that, tagging standards. These can be important for any number of reasons. You can tag based on cost centers by owners. You can tag based on compliance requirements. So we give you, I think it's 15 tags that you can apply to resources, and those tags can have values. So if you have a tag for cost center, then the value is X. And so everything in Azure could be quickly reported on based on those tags. It's just another way to categorize and stratify and report on your environment.
All right, in video number 9, we covered resource groups. Again, a refresher, resource groups are just a way of logically grouping Azure resources. Again, virtual machines, storage accounts, networking in these containers that share a life cycle, and you can also assign role-based access. So went over some examples of how you can use it to understand cost as well, and provided some tips. For example, you can nest resource groups, and they cannot be renamed. All right, we also went into a demo in video number 9 as far as creating those resource groups, applying those naming standards we talked about, and then how to lay out both the naming standards, the resource group, and assigning role-based access.
In video 10, we covered Azure policy. It's a great way to cover your role-based access controls. So just because I gave David permission to deploy a VM doesn't mean I'm going to let him deploy VM, in Asia or deploy a monster VM. So with policy, you can rein in some of those permissions and keep everyone compliant with your standards and your company.
Yeah, and we go into a lot more detail in video number 10.
And then management groups are a way to provide those role-based access controls like at a root tenant group, and then have it either inherit down to your subscriptions or not. So it's a great way to manage at scale permissions that you want to go across the board. You don't have to go to each one and assign people roles, but also note that you can block inheritance too. You don't have to inherit all the rights.
Yeah, Amy, and again, management groups are great if you're deploying a lot of subscriptions, right? But again, it's not necessary. You can certainly do it if you're a small environment. You can just use policies.
Yeah, and the other thing I'll just add about management groups is they're sort of a preemptive type technology because you can apply rules and policies before a subscription even gets created. So that's kind of cool.
And then this is just showing you the resulting rights. So you have your role-based access control that's defined for you on the left, and then policy, but the resulting rights are in the middle. So just like I mentioned before, just because you can deploy a VM doesn't mean you can deploy an end series because the policy is limiting you.
Yeah, and so the other thing I'll mention just quickly about policies is there's tons of policies out there across many different categories. So as Amy mentioned, just deploying specific SKUs can be prevented. Deploying to certain locations can be prevented. You can also apply security policies. You can apply there's just a whole lot of policies. They can even reach inside of VMs. So check that out in video number 10.
You can enforce tagging as well. So
absolutely, good point. And just finally, as a wrap up to this video, there's a ton of resources available out there to learn about Azure. These are some of our favorites. So you've got Microsoft Learn. You see the URLs here. The Hands-on Labs, great place to go through lab materials and really get some hands-on experience. This whole series is about the Azure governance scaffold in addition to some other things, but this link is sort of the link where you can find a lot of details and get a lot of other links to learn more about Azure governance. We also have these EDX courses for Azure. Great place to have video content and very well organized material to learn about various things in Azure. And then, of course, most of you that are watching this are education customers. And so if you're watching this and you're an education customer, we also have another resource called Azure Hour. Definitely encourage you to reach out to your account executive and to learn about Azure Hour if you're not familiar with it. It's a great place to come and join a call once a week to learn about what's going on in Azure, among other things. So reach out to your account executive. And then finally, if you got this far, thank you for taking time to watch this series. If you're watching this for the first time, then head back to the videos where we just discussed the summary of each to learn in more detail.
yes, thank you.